Family Guy may have cemented its place as that not-so-family-friendly, hilarious show about the wackiest family and quahog, but that doesn't mean throughout its 22-season run that still continues to this day, it hasn't had episodes that are downright cringe and hard to watch. Here are 10 episodes from Family Guy that don't really hit the funny spot and makes you want to smash the hell out of the skip button. Beginning our list with the most disgusting Family Guy episode to date is Herpes the Love Sore. It's the episode where Brian gives Stewie herpes. And no, not in the way you're thinking. Get your mind out of the gutter. It all happens when Stewie and Brian have a good old-fashioned movie night, watching a Western. Stewie sees this whole blood brother thing and, as only Stewie can, decides it's a fantastic idea. He goes full Stewie mode, using his unique brand of persuasion to get Brian on board.
Brian, I want you inside me.
You don't have to say it like that.
With knives in hand, they seal the deal, bonding over the slicing of palms. And at that very moment, you can almost hear the herpes viruses firing up their engines because, surprise, surprise, Brian's not exactly living the cleanest life.
Hey, are you blood brothers with Meg because you ate her tampon out of the trash?
Not long after, Stewie wakes up to a shocking change in his appearance. A sore so nasty, it could make even the most iron-stomached viewer gag. We're talking full-on face horror here, folks.
Ew, what's this?
Stewie's not buying it, so he digs into Brian's history and makes a horrifying discovery that somehow manages to look worse than his lip. You know it's bad when even Stewie, a baby who has tried to take over the world multiple times, can't handle it.
Oh my god, look at you! You're more herpes than dog!
Brian tries convincing Stewie that maybe he shouldn't be overdramatic about it, but if we're being honest here, Stewie is anything but dramatic, because the real Stewie we know would be bashing Brian's face in by now.
I mean, like what if it wasn't called herpes? Like what if it was called Boppo? Huh? Oh, I got a little Boppo. Oh, that's cute. I want Boppo.
Yeah, sure, Brian. Just call it something cuter, because everyone's dying to catch a case of the old Boppo. Not. Stewie soon finds out that living a life with a giant, disgusting sore right on your lip is not ideal, especially when you're a kid. As he's telling his Teddy Rupert to get checked because God knows what they've been doing, Chris walks in on him and reveals that he too had the bright idea of becoming blood brothers with Brian.
Good lord, you've got herpes too?
Fed up, Stewie and Chris decide it's time to teach Brian a lesson and wreck his lifestyle. Hey, if they have to suffer, so should he. Really, they're doing the world a public service by taking down the herp hound of Quahog.
You must be such a good person to knowingly go out with a herpes-riddled dirtbag.
Stewie goes full hacker mode, digging through Brian's laptop like some CSI episode, and informs the whole town of Brian's viral status. His new profile picture? A herpetastic jump scare that nobody needed in their lives. Brian is eventually forced to make it up to them with some pretty easy to fulfill demands.
I want to drive your Prius to the end of the block all by myself.
That's it?
Yes.
Okay.
Brian also assures Stewie that living with herpes for the rest of his life would only be bad during stressful times. Oh yeah, super reassuring. Like that's the one thing Stewie needed to hear to relax.
So, what would you say some of your weaknesses are?
That's probably one of them.
Next in is probably one of the most inappropriate episodes in the history of Family Guy. It's the episode where Stewie impregnates himself. Yep, you heard that right. And if you're asking, who's the father, you already know it's Brian. Because if you thought it was Rupert, that's just way too weird for Family Guy. The episode starts off when Stewie senses Brian slipping away from their already questionable friendship. And what better way to save a failing friendship than to have a baby? So, Stewie gets to work trying to talk things through with Brian, but Brian's too busy scrolling on his phone, probably checking Tinder for another date. That's way out of his league. This makes Stewie desperate, and he has to take matters into his own hands.
If we're going to fix this relationship, we need a baby, and we need it now.
Soon, Stewie is finished building a fertilization machine, and then he proceeds to say a sentence I don't think I ever expected to come out of Stewie's mouth.
All right, Rupert, the fertilization device is complete. This will impregnate me with the child that will bring Brian and me back together.
I mean, who sat in the writer's room and said, you know what Family Guy needs? A Stewie-Brian pregnancy plot. Like, why? Fast forward, and with the help of science and sitcom magic, Stewie is now a mother or father? I don't even know anymore. He gives Brian the good news and gets the reaction we'd expect from Brian.
Brian, we're pregnant.
Oh my God!
It's only been a couple of minutes since Brian has found out, and he's already looking for a way out of this mess, like he should, which, let's be honest, is the most relatable reaction in the entire episode.
I want to hear you say it.
Abortion! Abortion! You need to get a big fat abortion right this second!
Stewie is intent on keeping the baby though, and so Brian is forced to put up with it, even taking Stewie to a doctor's appointment, who, like every other adult in the Griffin household, seems alarmingly chill about a very pregnant toddler waddling in for a checkup.
You look a little young. How old are you?
13? 14? 15. But he didn't force himself on me.
Things only spiral from here. The pinnacle of discomfort hits when Stewie drags Brian into a maternity photo shoot, complete with soft lighting and awkward poses. If the animators didn't need therapy after drawing this, I'd be amazed.
These are good. Very classy.
This feels incredibly wrong.
You don't say, Brian. Fast forward, and it's finally the moment we've all been dreading, the delivery. They can't make it in time to the hospital, so Stewie decides to let loose his cannon inside the car. And from what I'm hearing, it's a freak show in there.
Ow! Kill me! This hurts too much! Holy... What is happening?
Anyways, the baby finally gets to see the world. I'm sorry, I meant to say babies, because there's a whole litter apparently, and they have more mutations than a nuclear bomb survivor. Guess they had to learn what happens when you go against nature.
This one's bones all feel loose.
I think that one is blind.
And just like that, they dump the kids without a second thought. It's the most cold-blooded yet oddly satisfying end to one of Family Guy's cringiest plot lines.
How attached to them are you?
Not at all.
Yeah, me either.
Next up, we have Seahorse Seashell Party, which probably has one of the cringiest and boring A-plots ever. They went all out on Brian's trippy journey, while the rest of the episode is just hard to get through filler plot. So, the Griffins are stuck inside with a 36-hour storm raging outside, and with nothing else to do, they have to come up with ways to entertain themselves, which shouldn't be hard considering it's the Griffins we're talking about. The first idea is charades, which Peter doesn't fully understand.
Oh, yeah, okay, me first. Okay, it's a movie, all right? Movie.
Peter, there's no talking in charades.
After that fails, Peter gives up and tortures the rest of the family with a painful 4-minute segment of straight-up dad noises. There's lazy writing, and then there's this.
How about you all sit there quietly while I make dad noises?
Running out of ideas, they start doing anything that includes Peter humming the most annoying cover of theme songs from the movies. And it's like 5 minutes of straight torture. God, this episode is painful. Even Meg can't stop herself from lashing out, which, like you'd expect, has the entire family taking out their frustration on her, because she's Meg after all.
I am sick of all you guys ganging up on me. You guys all think you're so much better than me.
Oh, Meg, that is the least fancy thing I have ever heard.
Meg's had enough, though, as she goes on this rant for the entire episode about each character, starting off with Chris, who should be backing her up, but instead gangs up on her with the rest of the family.
Is it too much to ask to be treated with a little decency from my brother? Maybe show me some kind of kindness by not jumping on the Let's Get Meg family bandwagon?
Lois eventually comes in to defuse the situation by totally not helping at all.
Meg seems to think she's taking some kind of stand here that's gonna make us all feel like we're inadequate.
But that just pushes Meg even more, as she now directs all her anger towards Lois, calling her out for her bad parenting and neglect. But seriously, who asked for all of this? We just want funny cutaways and stupid jokes, man.
Is this coming from my role model mother? The shoplifter, the drug addict, the porn star, the whore who let Gene Simmons and Bill Clinton go to town on her?
Oh, finally, Meg confronts Peter, who, unable to comprehend her insults, finds her argument funny, even as she calls him out for his destructive tendencies, and how he would go to prison if anyone in the real world witnessed his treatment of her. It only dawns on him that he is being insulted when Meg calls him a waste of a man.
You're a fat, lazy, abusive, blue-collar Irish Catholic dad who drinks way too much and barely makes enough money to support his family.
Within moments, the whole family turn their own abusive criticisms against each other until a devastated and tearful Peter flees upstairs, leaving Meg and Brian alone to discuss the situation.
You shut up, all of you! I didn't ask ask to be in this family.
Despite Brian commending her for standing up for herself, Meg feels remorse for hurting her family's feelings and concludes that they cannot survive without a lightning rod to endure their antagonism and absorb all their dysfunction. She decides to mend fences by apologizing to Peter, Lois, and Chris for taking her own problems out on them.
Meg, how could you put us all through that?
I'm sorry, you guys.
You're a bitch.
Yes. Yes, I am.
Number 7 brings us to yet another gore-filled dark episode, which is borderline cringe as well. The whole point of the episode is just Chris and Meg trying to pass off the corpse of Stewie as alive, which is way darker than usual, even for Family Guy. How did they even get to this point? Well, it all kicks off when Chris decides to take a peek at Meg's diary, uncovering a few dark secrets that he probably wishes he could unread.
Dear Diary, still no sign of that tampon from last week, but the headaches are getting worse.
Chris, horrified, tries to make his escape, only to full-on bulldoze Stewie down a flight of stairs. Stewie's got what Meg calls a boo-boo, but it's more like a Grand Canyon carved into his skull.
Do you think he's okay?
I don't know.
But hey, at least he's breathing, so Meg isn't too worried.
Is he breathing?
It looks like it. That's a good sign, right?
You can literally park a car in his head, Meg. Call an ambulance. It's soon time for dinner, and Chris manages to get Stewie settled into his chair, but after he faceplants himself in his bowl, Chris realizes he has to do some improv to distract Lois. There's just one tiny problem, though. His accent seems to be a bit off.
Hey, how's the food, Stewie? Oi, blimey, it's alright. Delicious, I do declare. Waka waka.
Anyways, Chris and Meg soon get a lesson in biology as they discover leaving a wound like that exposed for so long has terrible consequences. We cut to another weird scene where Chris's definition of cleaning a wound is using dirty bathtub water. Meg realizes the maggots forming in Stewie's head are growing faster than expected, a little too fast.
I think the maggots have evolved to the point that they've developed space travel.
That's when Meg decides to do the thing they should have done all along.
Maybe we should take him to the hospital.
Chris, on the other hand, has an even better idea, and he subjects us to something straight out of Junji Ito's manga or something.
Hand me that scrub brush.
Yep, you just watched Chris scrub Stewie's brain clean. At least he'll have the same IQ as the Griffins once he wakes up. If he wakes up. Peter ends up walking in on the kids as they're freaking out, and he reveals that this isn't the first tango with being irresponsible with his kids. He's knocked them out far more times than he can remember.
When you were babies, I used to knock you kids out every month or so. Sometimes by accident, sometimes when the Patriots lost.
How comforting to find out that your dad used to knock you out when his favorite team lost. He gives Meg a list of caps she should get, and that's when they're reminded of an incident they should have disclosed to Peter way earlier.
Good idea. One of those hats would have helped him at the park today.
What sins did Stewie commit to be born as a griffin? Peter doesn't even care that his child had half his brain eaten by a raccoon. They even have a close call once when the whole family gets together to watch Brian's new show. But Chris manages to get Stewie and escape with some collateral damage dealt to Stewie.
Oh, ha ha.
Time for bed, Stewie.
With Stewie's wound now changing more colors than a chameleon, Meg starts freaking out and wants to take him to the hospital like a sane human would. But Peter has one last trick up his sleeve, and you're not gonna like what you see next.
No. I got one last plan, Meg.
Oh my god! Stewie! Oh god, what have I done?
How does she not notice the maggots in there? Anyways, she's already on the case.
Peter, we have to cover this up.
Yeah, but... What?
Yeah, this entire family is screwed up. Fast forward and they take Stewie to the hospital finally, and through some weird miracle, he's back up on his feet. Just a couple of months later, though.
Hey, I just found out it's November. What the fuck happened?
Another gem in the Family Guy Hall of Shame that somehow makes you laugh, cringe, and question everything you thought you knew about cartoon boundaries. All at once. At the 6th spot, it's the one where Quagmire's sister Brenda gets stuck in a toxic relationship with her abusive boyfriend, Jeff. Honestly, this episode feels like it started with an idea and then just lost the map halfway through because it's a wild mix of dark, cringy, and downright baffling. It all kicks off when Brenda shows up to help out Quagmire after he's had a little accident. But unfortunately, she's not alone. She's brought her charming boyfriend, Jeff, who redefines what it means to be an absolute jerk.
Come here! You fat, ugly bitch! If today wasn't your birthday...
Jeff, please, you're being...
What?
Jeff, whose communication style seems to be permanently set to shout like a lunatic, proceeds to make sure the whole neighborhood knows he's a trash human.
Well, it wouldn't matter if you would just pick up that night shift at the prison!
But then I'll be working 100 hours a week.
So what? I need money for motor oil and oil change!
Quagmire's had enough of watching his sister get treated like a human punching bag, so he turns to the Griffins for help. Lois offers to talk some sense into Brenda, but things take a turn for the worse when she notices Brenda's new accessory, a shiner the size of a golf ball.
No, it's really not that bad. It only hurts when I see.
That's kind of the whole point, isn't it, Brenda? Lois tries her best to convince Brenda that maybe, just maybe, Jeff isn't exactly boyfriend material, but Brenda's way too deep in denial.
Jeff's sweet. You don't see how soft and gentle he hits me when we're alone.
Do you hear yourself? He shouldn't be hitting you at all.
Yep, that's the sound of the audience's collective cringe. When Lois's pep talk goes nowhere, the gang organizes an intervention to make Brenda realize she's in a textbook abusive relationship. But they probably shouldn't have let Meg go first.
Meg?
I feel like if he likes you, maybe you can change him.
Okay, maybe she wasn't the one to start.
The intervention is starting to go south before Quagmire decides to take charge and prove that maybe beneath all that creepiness and perverted ego, there's a loving brother under there. We finally see a sliver of hope as Brenda is starting to realize what a jerk Jeff is, until she does this.
Brenda, you tell him?
No, not yet. Everyone, I have wonderful news. Jeff and I are getting married.
That's not it. She's also pregnant, and Peter, like always, does not read the room.
Oh, congratulations! Have you thought of any names yet? Maybe Slappy? Or Bruisey?
Quagmire, understandably, is not thrilled with the idea of watching his sister marry a human pile of garbage. While brainstorming for a way out of this nightmare, Peter, in a rare moment of clarity, accidentally suggests the perfect plan.
You know, I was thinking this afternoon, what the hell happened to the days when a guy does something like that to a girl, and a bunch of us guys get together and just go kick his ass?
The guys invite Jeff on a hunting trip, and Peter, of course, nearly ruins everything by almost blowing their cover.
Well, what the hell are we doing out here? I thought we were gonna kill him.
So, Jeff, do you like loud sentences?
Turns out Jeff already has an idea of what's going on, and he came prepared. After knocking Peter and Joe out, he takes Quagmire out to the middle of the forest, where he plans to kill him. Quagmire isn't going down without a fight, and he challenges Jeff to a fist fight, which he badly loses, and ends up getting choked to death. But Jeff soon finds out why Quagmire is the autoerotic asphyxiating king of Quahog.
I choke myself every day, you bastard.
What the? The next morning, Peter, Joe, and Quagmire return home with a forged note, supposedly from Jeff, saying he's decided to leave Brenda. This should be the end of the chaos, but instead, we get a bizarre ending line from Peter.
I kind of want to kill somebody else now.
Sitting at our number 5 spot is the episode that was set up just to pull in ratings by killing off a main character for no apparent reason. Yes, it's Life of Brian, where Brian gets replaced with an even more annoying dog, which is a feat in itself. The episode kicks off with Stewie and Brian doing something incredibly smart, playing in the middle of the street, despite having a gigantic backyard right outside their house.
Okay, Brian, I'm just putting this out there, but I'm a baby, and only dicks don't let babies win.
Apparently, the universe agrees, because the second Stewie runs inside to grab his knee pads, out of nowhere, a car speeds by and bam! Brian gets run over. Honestly, for a main character death, it felt like they put about as much effort into it as they did into last week's cutaway gag. At least, the squirrel got the last word.
Holy crap, what the hell happened?
That guy sucked.
At the vet, the family waits impatiently as Brian gets treated. Peter, on the other hand, believes it's time for some small talk, which isn't appreciated.
Aren't you supposed to be running around?
Don't talk to me. You have a bad reputation in the chicken community.
Oh, eventually the vet comes out and delivers the news everyone dreaded. Brian's time is up, and just before he passes, he leaves the family with his final, oddly sentimental words.
You've given me a wonderful life.
I love you all.
As the family mourns Brian's death, Stewie is already thinking of a way to bring him back, and he has just the right thing for it as well.
Wait a minute. That's it! I've just got to rebuild the time machine, and then I can go back and save Brian!
Stewie tries to rebuild the time machine and use it to save Brian, but finds that his dealer is unable to supply him with needed parts, and so even Stewie loses hope that he'll ever get to see Brian again. A month after his funeral, Lois suggests they get a new dog to take their mind off of Brian, but Stewie already knows that's a bad idea.
Really? Another dog? Look, I miss Brian more than any of you, but at least now no one's forcing us to watch those awful PBS documentaries.
Ignoring Stewie, Peter and Lois find themselves at the pound looking for a new dog, and you would not believe who they found. It's the doggy manifestation of Paulie from The Sopranos, and he acts the part so well.
Well, you know, I'm just a regular guy. You throw a stick, maybe I bring it back. Maybe I bring back an iPhone that fell off a truck.
Maybe this episode isn't that bad. Stewie is not happy with Vinny and decides to ruin him, but Chris ruins it for Stewie. Later, Vinny hears Stewie crying and realizes he is still upset over Brian. Vinny offers some comfort, talking about the death of his previous owner, Leo, and proving he knows what it is like to lose a best friend. And so, the episode ends on a wholesome note.
You know, actually, Lois, I think I'm gonna sleep in here with Stewie tonight.
Oh, well, isn't that nice?
And there you have it. Life of Brian, the episode that yanked at our heartstrings by offing a beloved character for seemingly no reason, only to bring in a replacement who's a walking, barking Italian-American stereotype. At number 4 is Fresh Air, which gives creepy a whole new meaning as Peter decides to marry his own son, Chris, just to get his hands on a hefty inheritance, and yeah, it's just that kind of an episode. It all begins when Chris gets rejected for some father-son bonding time because Peter has his priorities set elsewhere.
I was thinking we could spend some time together.
Okay, are you a television set or the internet?
No.
Oh, then no. No, thank you.
Feeling guilty, Lois decides to send Chris to cheer up his bedridden grandfather Carter, who's laid up after a nasty accident. Chris, eager for some attention, goes all in on taking care of Carter, going above and way beyond.
No, you can do it basically whenever you're not doing something else.
Cool! Hey, next time I want to try it with my hand.
Yeah, so that happened. Pretty soon the grandfather-grandson duo are hitting it off with all sorts of goofy activities, like racing delivery guys and starting their own band.
Wow, he's really fast.
Hey, I got an idea. Let's put in 2 different orders and have them race.
When Chris is getting dropped off, Carter offers him money for helping him out. In, ways. Chris refuses, saying how he just wanted to do it for fun, and that's when Carter realizes that he has found the right person to give his entire inheritance to, because he's definitely gonna outlive his wife. That we're sure of.
I mean, what about Mom?
I promise she'll be dead before I am. I promise.
Peter now faces a huge wrench in his ultimate plan to cure Alzheimer's. The fact that Chris is going to take all the inheritance money that was going to Lois. So he decides to suck up to Chris for his share of the cash. And that part about the disease? Apparently, it really is a thing in Quahog.
Peter, are those testicles? Why did you get those?
I don't remember.
His kiss-assing techniques are pretty dusty, but he'll get there eventually.
Hey, Chris, hey, you remember that kid you said was bullying you at school? Well, here's his head.
Ah! That's not even him.
Oh, but Peter's blatant attempts to win over Chris aren't working fast enough. Then, Quagmire plants a truly bizarre idea in Peter's head, leading to a plot twist that absolutely nobody saw coming.
Chris, there comes a time when every man looks at his son and thinks, I want to take this to the next level. Chris Griffin, will you marry me?
Yeah, I'm not sure that happens, Peter. Like, ever. So, Chris decides to go with the wedding idea as a way of finally being able to spend time with his father. On the wedding day, Lois and the rest of the family interrupt the ceremony to tell Peter what he is doing is wrong, as if that wasn't already obvious.
Lois, how did you find out about this?
Peter, several people have called the police about a man marrying his son.
Chris stops her to reveal he knew all along it was for the money, but he didn't care because he just wanted to spend time with his dad. Peter and Chris agree to settle for being father and son, and they return home.
Yeah, and I guess I learned it's wrong to take your son to Vermont under false pretenses to try to marry him for his inheritance.
You should have known that.
This episode solidifies its spot on the list for taking the term dysfunctional family to a level most sitcoms wouldn't dare touch with a 10-foot pole. Con Heiress fits into the third spot in our list because this episode takes the cake for the strangest competition ever, as Peter and Chris vie for the affection of Herbert, the neighborhood's infamous and very creepy old man. If awkward, dark humor is your jam, you're in the right place. The episode kicks off with Lois nagging Peter to mow the lawn because it's starting to look like the Amazon rainforest. Peter, being the master procrastinator, tries every excuse in the book before finally relenting and deciding to show Chris the ropes. And so, they're at it first thing in the morning.
What the? Hey, shut up!
You shut up!
Ooh, real original.
After step one, which was starting the mower itself, Peter realizes he too needs lessons, and they turn to their best friend, YouTube, to help them out. But that takes them down a whole new rabbit hole.
Salam alaikum, guys. This is Corey, here to talk about making a dirty bomb with stuff you can find in your kitchen.
They soon get to work on their lawn when Herbert, that one creepy guy whose house you always ran past from, shows up and tries to bait Chris into mowing his lawn, which he gladly accepts.
Did you hear that, Dad? He'll pay us $600.
Yeah, did you not hear about Fort Dix?
When Peter and Chris visit Herbert to mow his lawn, Herbert can't stop giving all his attention to Peter, who does not seem to mind it as well. In fact, he's fascinated like a 2-year-old kid when Herbert pulls out a trick.
Wow, what's this?
Wow, how'd you do that?
It wasn't a trick, it was stuck to your neck.
While working on the lawn, Herbert brings out cookies for the boys, which Peter mows down as well, but something tells me eating anything from Herbert is sentencing yourself to a lifetime of trauma. Chris, on the other hand, is actually jealous that the cookies that have pills instead of chocolate chips were supposed to be just his.
But Mr. Herbert, you always made the cookies with the large pill in the center for me.
Sorry, Chris. He just got to him first.
I thought I was your favorite.
And if you thought the B-plot would be better, take a look at this.
That's Margaret, Woolworth, Carrington, von Schumacher, Chanel, Astor, Livingston, Comte de Saint-Exupéry, Mountbatten, Windsor, Armani, Roosevelt, Von Trapp, Wickenham, Hearst.
Yeah, this goes on for the next 4 minutes. Just pure, unfiltered cringe, man. Meanwhile, at the Herbert house, we see Herbert giving a ride to Peter, which is yet another clue that physics just does not exist in Quahog, because if that bag of bones can hold the 3-ton giant, anything can happen. But then again, Herbert also did this, so maybe he does have super strength.
All right, now let's kick it up a notch. Come on, take it by the baby to that goal that you know you can kill yourself in it longer.
When Chris finds Peter taking his spot as Herbert's victim, he's furious and starts fighting him, which strangely involves ripping each other's clothes off. But hey, Herbert doesn't mind, does he? Anyways, it all ends when it's revealed to Herbert that Peter is actually Chris's dad, and that causes him to spontaneously combust like any other pedophile should.
Well, he often said he wanted to explode all over me. He finally did.
Turns out Chris can't get rid of Herbert that easily, and he finds his way back thanks to his trusty dog and the power of photosynthesis.
I am Herbert! I am Herbert! I am Herbert!
The runner-up for the cringiest episode is Bryda, where we get to revisit the shit show that is Brian and Ida's relationship. Ida, who you may remember is Quagmire's dad, who realized that he, or should I say she, was a woman trapped in a woman's body? Anyways, it all starts off with Ida coming across a clip of Quagmire's shenanigans online because the genius thought it'd be a good idea to film whatever he did when he was drunk, and you could pretty much guess it was Quagmire stuff.
Excuse me, ma'am. No porn at the bar.
Oh, it's okay. I'm transgender.
Oh, I had no idea. Do whatever you want all the time.
After she discovers Brian at the bar, they hit it off again, even after that incident that happened last time with Quagmire beating Brian almost to death. Ida talks to him about how she's disappointed in Quagmire, and Brian just can't stop himself from handing out a word salad, like always.
Yeah, that parent-child relationship is so special. Sometimes you want to shake him by the shoulders and say, what are you doing?
As Ida resigns herself to Brian leaving again, the latter decides to go ahead and have a relationship with her. However, he is still shy about being seen with Ida in public. A little too shy, in fact.
Wow. Check out that big blue marble. Look, there's another shuttle. Get away from the window.
Brian finally announces to the whole family that he's together with Ida, and they're okay with it. But that's not who we're really worried about. It's the guy who has to live with the fact that his dad is married to a dog who may have a problem.
I know Brian was squeamish about sleeping with a trans woman before, but it's 2019 now.
Yeah, things that were gross 5 years ago are now heroic.
Wow, Brian and Ida. Good for them.
Quagmire takes the news poorly, despite Brian's efforts to try to bond.
To do what? I'm the one who scored the touchdown. You sure did, Glenn. He's not my dad. I already have a dad. There's my mom. All right, Brian? Stop trying to be my dad, you fraud.
He finally insists it will either be him or Brian in Ida's life. To Brian's surprise, Ida chooses her son Quagmire, settling to enjoy what they had. They have a whole moment, which is ruined when Peter arrives to announce that maybe Chris needs a wheelchair more than Joe now.
I said that didn't count, but he still wouldn't count the touchdown. So I drilled him in the head with the ball, and now he's not moving. He can blink his eyes, but nothing else. So is my dog still your dad?
No.
And finally, at number 1, we have the cringiest Family Guy episode to date, which was so slow and hard to watch, you'd think you're watching an Ellen DeGeneres episode. The entire episode is basically just Stewie talking to a psychologist, where the only good part about the episode comes in. He's voiced by Ian McKellen, so we're constantly confused if it's Gandalf giving Stewie some cold hard advice. Right off the bat, Stewie's attempt at small talk takes a very weird direction.
I saw the kid who has cancer leave. That must have been fun. I don't know why his parents are still bringing him to school. It's uncomfortable for everyone.
And that's just the beginning of the constant yapping, full of awkward jokes and attempts to find a talking point with a rather silent psychologist. I mean, aren't these guys paid to literally talk to you?
I see the tissue box is empty. Somebody was going through those like, well, tissues.
This is also the first time the show addresses the only some people can hear Stewie situation before completely dropping it and going back to talking about cancer again.
Everyone hears this.
Well, just the people who can understand me, which you appear to be one of. But that's too complicated to go into. I'm not even sure I get it.
When the doctor tells him he feels he knows him a bit after only a few minutes in his company, Stewie picks up a photograph of him and goes on a whole tangent about the psychologist and his husband for the next 7 minutes. I'm not kidding. I had to sit through a 7-minute segment of Stewie making up a complete story about the couple. Please, where are the cutaways? Anyways, the psychologist knows just how to shut Stewie down, and he does just that.
You seem like a very lonely little boy.
Oh my God, I am! I'm so lonely!
Stewie takes up an offer of tea, and Pritchfield begins to tell him of his own youth as an orphan in Britain during the Second World War. Stewie interrupts his long story, and they return to discussing Stewie's differences and difficulty fitting in. But what was up with that song number and a booger situation? I wanted to puke halfway through.
My name is Alexander Hamilton, and there's a million things I haven't done.
Stewie is soon starting to crack as the psychologist tries to get to the root of his problems and why he treats everyone like the way he does.
Dr. Pritchfield, I'm not like the other kids.
I realized that when you picked up that photo and decimated my entire life.
Sorry.
Stewie admits that he has constructed a persona in order to hide his true self and drops his British accent, revealing his true accent to have been American all along, which makes me want to skip this episode even more now.
This is how I talk. The accent is nothing more than an affectation, a coat of armor to get me through the day, just an image I cultivated so I could feel special.
He makes plans to reveal his true self to others as well, but reconsiders and reverts to his British accent when he faces being just like everyone else. Suddenly, Pritchfield starts to have a heart attack, and now that he has seen Stewie's true colors, Stewie isn't too keen on helping him out as well.
It's because I can't have anyone know the real me, and so you must die. I guess that's what happens in therapy, then.
No, this does not happen in therapy, Stewie. And so the episode ends, with Pritchfield's death and Stewie's secret tucked away forever, for no one to find out except us, who would very much prefer the British version.